Hi, Dr. Rob. The first
Hi,
question, I
Tammy.
know this recording is going to be, yeah, whatever.
Tammy's got a cold tonight,
Yeah,
folks.
but anyway, so the first question, Dr. Rob, is have you heard about any success with addicts doing psychedelic therapy?
No, I have not. And I don't think it's intended for that. Every type of therapy that is a specialty, like EMDR or psychedelics or ketamine, or they're all designed for a specific thing. So to me, addict therapy is addict therapy, and then there's general pieces of therapy that run behind it. And behind that, we're looking for trauma. So there's kind of layers of it. But I think that psychedelic therapy has been very helpful for people who have, some people have long-term depression, the kind of depression where they used to give or still do give electroshock therapy and they're just unable to find their way out of depression. The ketamine and some of the psychedelics have been really, really helpful in microdoses for vets who are experiencing PTSD, but they have specific actions and treatment is a specific thing. If I was seeing you for a grandmother you'd lost and you loved her dearly and you didn't know how to move forward with your life, that's psychotherapy. If you're an addict, we're doing addiction therapy, which is much more challenging, much more confrontive, and it really has a kind of structure and a path that we all need to take together. So if someone has been sober for a while, like a while and a couple of years, and they have begun to examine trauma and they get overwhelmed or they're having a difficult time remembering things, or there can be, with a specialist, use in that. But it's also very experimental. We haven't gotten very far. So you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years because you do it now because they don't know. Tammy, did you want to? We should probably keep moving along unless you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, we should. But yeah, I think like
Mm,
I can imagine an addict going like, if I do that psychedelic therapy, I'm going to be magically fixed and I get to do this psychedelic. So this could be to me like one of those things where I'm looking for a magic cure. So
right.
yeah, I mean, this is a chronic condition where, but we can learn to do things differently. So
I also wanted to say, and to Tammy's point really quickly, that I've been in the field long enough. I've been a professional licensed therapist for 30 years, and I know a few things about mental health and addiction. And I can tell you, and I've written about this, there are trends. I remember when primal scream therapy was what people did. I remember when Bataka bats, people were banging on
mm,
chairs. I have a whole list of things that at the time, codependency, for example, at the time it's made so much sense, but in reality, the research didn't bear it out. And my experience is that therapists get really excited. They think they found the magic pill and they want to do whatever that treatment is with everyone they've ever met. And unfortunately, specific things are for specific people. And as Tammy said, there is no magic pill. So beware of a brand new treatment that someone's really excited about because it's probably more the therapist's excitement than it is necessarily the right application for your situation. And by the way, you're good to get a second opinion, which is, I hope, what you're doing. And, I'm not here as a licensed medical person, but I would want to learn more about that. And no, it doesn't help with addiction.
next question. I have broken up with my ex. My trauma feels so deep that I feel my sexual injury will never heal. I've heard that one can heal in relationship, but I don't think I'll ever be involved in a relationship with a man. Will I still be able to heal fully in the future?
Well, there's a couple of questions in there. So I wanted to answer the one about trauma and the sexual injury. And believe me, folks, I don't know what this person means, but when I'm in treatment and when we're running the residential program and I hear from the spouses because they are involved, sexual injury can be having sex with you when you don't feel like it, constantly demanding sex of you, not having sex with you at all, all the stuff that addicts do. And the injury is it's to your intimacy, your sense of safety, your sense of relationship. So yes, we only heal in relationship, but that doesn't mean it has to be a romantic relationship. One of the things that we have spouses groups that are absolutely free, and we have some who are partners who've broken up or in the process of breaking up, and there's a group just for that. And so I think the more you get the support of other women who are going through this, and you can get that. We all feel, how many women in one of those rooms with 35 people or here feel like they just have no desire to be sexual and have lost all their interest in partnership. And I think that's part of the grief and part of the trauma of betrayal. I don't know if what's happening is re-injuring you from something happened in the past and there's a lot to work through. And I don't know if this has been 3 weeks or 3 years. So I will say that there is a process. Tammy, what books would you recommend for kind of watching the cycle of a betrayed partner? I know Dr. Carnes wrote about it some. Um, Michelle Mays, maybe,
Oh,
or
that could be. I'll look up some books on our website because that's where I go is go look up our stuff.
excuse
We
me.
have so many amazing resources. It's just easier to look it up than to try to remember some of this.
And
Oh,
I
the
think
Betrayal
that's
Bind. But yeah,
right.
I
How
do.
about
Yeah,
who was I thinking of? Oh, Carol, what's her name? Carol the coach. She has a book too.
yeah.
But
She's got several.
in any case, I think that what you need to understand, and you'll learn from the other women in the reading, is that trauma is a process. And where you are right now, the sexual issues and the fear of intimacy and all that stuff, that may not be where you are 2 years from now. It's like grief. I lost someone very dear to me about 3 years ago, and it was very immediate. And now it's just kind of a longing in my heart and a sadness, but things change. So I would say I hear a lot of hopelessness and despair in this note, which is what you would be feeling if you'd broken up with someone that you love. By the way, I say this a lot, and Tammy, I think, would support me here, is that just because you've broken up and it's been horrible doesn't mean you're going to stop having feelings for this person. Doesn't mean you're going to, I mean, I've worked with abused spouses, really severely abused spouses, who would say, I don't understand why I'm still thinking about him. Why did he did these awful things to me? And it's like, because when we attach, it doesn't just break and that's done because a bad thing happened. We may separate it, maybe the right thing to do, absolutely, but that doesn't mean our heart doesn't know that. Our heart just knows that we're missing our person. And that's, it's very primitive, it's very basic. And yeah, I would say give yourself some time to heal and connect with other women who will support you. Forget romance. Okay, let's move on.
So I have a couple of things to tag on in the
Oh, good.
chat. I
Sorry.
put moving on alone drop-in group, which is Thursdays for betrayed partners. There's a separate one on Fridays for the guys. And this is for partners who have left, been left, or maybe leaving, or in the process. So I think you'd find other people who are on that journey and find that helpful. We finally have a new location and dates for the Empowered Women's Retreat. You would be amazed at how healing this is. We aren't talking
Can you just
about
say what it
him
is,
and the
like a couple of
behaviors.
days,
Yeah,
just like give a little
well, I
bit of,
was trying to, but somebody interrupted me.
sorry.
So these are retreats in person, and they're not about talking about what the addict did or didn't do. This is about healing and the connection of the group. So the next one will be August 15th through 18th. I put the link in, it's on our website. But I put the link in the chat as well. But these are for women only to come and connect with other women, and the healing that happens. I mean, it's freaking amazing to see how much difference there is, from Thursday night to Sunday, with the processing that happens. But we talk about boundaries. We talk about grief, which is what I really hear for you is grief. And I didn't put it in, but I should. Debbie McCrae did a 2-part webinar on grief. It's a process, and it's like healing a deep wound. You have a deep wound and you can't expect to put a band-aid on and then just be magically better. This is going to take healing from the inside out. And that's, going to take some time and processing through. But I promise you, if you're willing to do the work, you will have joy. You will have, you will have serenity. You will have peace. There will still be moments where you kind of get pinged on things, but it won't always feel this hurtful and raw as it does right now. So,
I want to just jump on that and say that part of the women's retreat is the word women, which is exactly what we were just talking about, is you will discover that you don't need the romantic relationship, at least not right now. What you need, and by the way, same as the addict, I need other guys who are struggling with addiction. I don't need to, play golf or talk to friends who are unhappy. I need to be, and this is really a quick thing. The best work that we can do as when you're in groups is to be with people like you. There's a reason there's a cocaine anonymous and a marijuana anonymous, and you just think it's the narcissism of the addicts, and that's true. But there also is a sense of belonging. I couldn't go anywhere where people didn't have a history of sexual acting out because I would feel like a pervert. And I couldn't go as a partner anywhere but where there were other grieving partners because I would feel like I was not understood. And so one of these things about, and Tammy said about the women's retreats, it's really about bonding and realizing that you can have joy without, excuse me, ladies, if you're lady, without a man around if you're straight. So anyway, Tammy, I'm sorry. Please continue.
no, but I was thinking like I hear people too that talk about, well, he's going to AA or I'm going to AA. And just like you said, nobody's talking about sexual acting out at AA. And so it's so compartmentalized. You're still not, you're still hiding pieces of it. There's still shame. If you started talking about that, you said, I'd feel like a pervert. You would feel like ostracized even within those meetings. So it really is about being with the people that, that share similar issues as you, so you can go, hey, yeah, me too. So I mean, if you need AA, trust me, go to both, but go someplace where you absolutely can talk about things. And that includes the drop-in groups that we have on our website too. So okay, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, your face
Oh,
is
sorry,
gone.
my
So
video for some reason.
yeah,
There we
can you
go.
talk about
Sorry.
the difference between sexually attracted to your partner and treating them like a sex object? How do they differ, and how do they look the same? That's a great question.
I mean, I think as a woman, that would be a good question for you to, although I don't know whether it's male or female, whatever, but I'd love you to give that a try, and then they jump in after you.
Yeah, I think it's the vulnerability. I mean, like like you're paying attention. It's like I'm looking in your eyes, and I understand. And there's desire, but it isn't just like you're a body part, and you're there for my sexual gratification. And I think it's more. Dr. Rob has talked about a lot. The intimacy isn't just sexual. So I think it's that real connection, and that's the beginning of all of this, is that you have a real connection, so it's meaningful. So if it feels like it's being objectified, I, I think that's one of those. If you're in a real relationship and you are intimately involved, then you can have a conversation about that. Like, I feel like you're objectifying. Are you having fantasy about something else, or are you here in the moment with me? That's real connection. So
I When you talk about connection, Cami, it's funny because I thought the word intimacy, but it's hard
mhm,
because people think intimacy is sex.
I know.
And intimacy is about connecting and relationship and feeling understood. When I read and talk to partners, the first thing I ask you, when I'm doing my consults, the first thing I ask a spouse, I'm giving this away, is have you ever felt like or well, in this case, heterosexual model, have you ever felt that he was distant, emotionally unavailable? You would ask questions and he'd turn away. He was working all the time. When you were upset, he would try to kind of soothe you, but then like you just didn't feel like you had a connection. And a lot of spouses, in my experience, just say, oh, well, that's what my relationship is going to be or is. And then the sex feels awkward because it isn't aligned with the emotional context of the relationship. I know that sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, so I'll give you some really clear things. I always thought that sex would be a place where you could laugh. You could say, you want to do that to me, and you want to eat. Really? So if there's laughter and there's fun and there's play, I think you're not being objectified. I think if you can say something like, I'm not comfortable with that. Could we try this or could we do it that way? And you can stop and communicate rather than just having it happen. I think then you know that you're not being objectified. I will add just briefly on the other end that I work with a lot of spouses who feel like they were providing sex because that's what they were supposed to do. I've seen partners who knew there was cheating going on and say, well, I'm going to have sex with him or her so that I know that they're going to be kind of worn out and not want anyone else. Trust me, that doesn't work. Um, because an addict, as a friend of mine said, our sex organs are between our ears, not between our legs. So, yeah, and I have had partners say, I just felt like, well, lack of foreplay, turning away from someone after it's over. There are so many signs that, and you know what? Most of all, and I'll shut up, your heart. All the partners I've worked with on some level know that that person's thinking about something else, or they're not really present, or you can just feel it. And I would trust that. I would trust that feeling. You'll know if you're being loved or being used. I think you will over time know that in your heart. Yeah, let's keep moving.
Okay. Can you please comment on brain spotting as a tool for trauma therapy?
Do you want to start that one too, Tammy, or do you want me to jump in?
Well, I have not tried that one, but I've heard it's like the elevated version of EMDR, which you know, I I have had good success with as a client. So I mean, I haven't ever witnessed this, but I've just heard positive things. So do you have clinical thoughts on this?
Give me 1 second, because I want to make sure that what you're talking about is what I'm talking about. It's a therapeutic technique, so everyone knows, and I'm on AI, a chat GPT. Brain spotting is a therapeutic technique that involves identifying and processing trauma or emotional issues by focusing on specific points in someone's visual field. So that, like Tammy said, is kind of like EMDR, which is also a process of, well, I'll give you an example. When you ask me if what I had for breakfast today, I'm going to look up and my eyes are going to go like that, because that's a connection to our memory. Uh, and it became researched and true that one of the ways we can connect with past memory and trauma is by moving our eyes back and forth. So EMDR is actually, seems kind of crazy, but it actually works. It's actually tracking. Some people use light bars to go back and forth, and you start talking about it, and it releases some of the tension, the anxiety, and the fear about what has happened. So brain spotting is another arena where that is used, where they're pinpointing specific things that have happened, working with how you look, what's happening with your face, what you have to say. I mean, it's complicated. I think the thing that's important to me, and I'll say it again, is none of this is a cure. And none of this is, how do I say this? I'm a good therapist and I'm good at what I do. It's like being a good doctor. Here's the best way to say it. I'm a good GP, all right, general practitioner. But if someone's got a certain kind of trauma to their hand, I'm going to send them to a hand specialist. And then they're going to come back to me as a general practitioner. If they have some kind of symptoms of a brain problem, I'm going to send them to a neurologist. They're going to come back to me. So it's kind of the same thing with therapy. There's a primary therapist. I'm going to see you and work with you. But if I hear there's something that might require EMDR or might be useful to do brain spotting, I'm going to find an expert for that. But it's not the intention to have all the therapy be about that one technique. They're techniques. The actual therapy, and I've heard people say, well, I do nothing but EMDR. I don't think that you kind of need to go to know the person and see the priorities, and also what are they dealing with in their day-to-day life. Therapists often want to jump into trauma. Well, that's great, but maybe the person's having trouble getting through the day. So I think a really good therapist takes time to evaluate and think about, do they want to pick that specialty? Do you want chiropractic, or do you want massage, or do you need to go to physical therapy? What is the right thing for where you are and what you have? And so, yes and no. It can be helpful for trauma therapy, but I think you got to have someone who really is containing you and holding you and pointing you to different things that you can use and then bring back to your therapy. There, how's that?
Yeah, I agree. And you've said before, and I've shared with people too, like there have been people who have written in on these webinars that said, like, I'm overwhelmed with trying to do this trauma work. And you said, tell your therapist, I need to slow down. You have to make sure you've got the container, you've got the support to be able to tolerate doing those things. But yeah, like I had something that wasn't serving me well. I went and did some EMDR. I have not had that issue since then. So I really do find those things, but that was like one time for that, and I had a few other EMDR. So if I was going to see a therapist all the time for EMDR, that would not really be useful. That's not what I need. But having the, like Dr. Rob said, if you've got a qualified therapist that's kind of overseeing your treatment plan and then goes, yeah, you should go do some trauma work, EMDR, brain spotting, somatic experience, whatever. And then, let's stay in contact. I'm going to stay watching this and monitoring that. You've got release assigned. So they're working in tandem for your benefit. That can be really effective.
And I want to add treatment with us too. If you want to have a consult with me, if you want to go to residential treatment, if you want, I think it's great when your therapists call and we can explain to them, because sometimes I don't know anything about that and that's not good. We can explain. They can choose to, we're kind of like a play, not everyone needs residential treatment, but someone may identify, or you may identify, that level of care is needed. Bring in your therapist. We'll talk to them. You don't have to feel like this person's saying this and this person's saying that, and I don't know what to do. Um, so
I do that all the time. I invite, when people are reaching out, I'm like, I would be happy, or have our clinical director to talk to your therapist. We're seeking integrity. We work really hard at being transparent. We really lean into the integrity. So keep that in mind. Okay, next question, Dr. Rob. Detective work, especially after full therapeutic disclosure, is this something that the addict partner should be willing to accept even as they move from sobriety into embracing recovery? It just plain feels like the price of admission for the betrayed partner to stay in the relationship. Trust but verify. That's an interesting question.
Well, there's more, right? Or is there more? Oh, I see.
No.
Um, so I've written about this in Pro Dependence, which is a counter to codependency. And there's a message in codependency, which is, well, if you're looking around and you're searching, then you're into your own problems and you shouldn't be doing that. And I don't think that's true. I think if you don't know what's been going on in your life for 5 years or 20 years, you might need to do a little research to find out what the heck has been going on. And if the person who's not been telling you is right in front of you, maybe you do need more information. And I have never, there's a point at which, when you're getting, I mean, 1 January of this year, that's only a couple of months away. I can imagine, wanting to look. I have folks I work with who track their partner wherever they go on their phone. I think that a couple of things. Number one, it's not going to make you feel better. I can tell you that. One of the things that spouses in particular, I think, are challenged by is that they have this thought that, well, if I have the answer to this question, if I have the answer to that question, then I'm going to feel better. But every question you ask and every answer you get, you don't feel better, and it brings up another question. So you kind of drive yourself crazy, but that's kind of expected. But it has to slow down. I would not do detective work without talking to your partner. Then it's, I wouldn't grab the phone or grab the browser and say, when you were at home, I was looking at your iPad, and I think it's a relationship issue to say, okay, you're working on this. We're working on this. You did disclosure. I want access to your phones and your browser and for a period of time. And anyone who says that you don't have a right to do that, I would say to them, well, how was it that I was lied to for 23 years and I don't have the opportunity to see if I'm still being lied to? I absolutely think you do. I'll just say this one thing. I was doing an interview. I did a lot of media interactions, and I had one woman call me, and she said, she said, if someone's boyfriend has all these social media accounts, at what point do you think that the girlfriend should have access to read them, see them, whatever? And my answer is very simple: when trust is broken. I get to look at, see, chat with whatever I want to. I don't think it is kind of my business unless there's something you want to know about. But I'll tell you what, if you find something that is not okay in there, then all bets are off. And you bet I better give you every code and everything. If I want to save my relationship, then I have to rebuild trust. And part of that is saying, I have nothing to hide. Now, if you find something that happened 5 years ago, that's going to be a tough one because you're going to be reminded of something, even though it's already maybe been disclosed. But nonetheless, I don't, I think it's something you need to do. I think it's something you should do. I think it's something you should do in relationship to your partner. I don't think you should let any therapist talk you out of it or call you codependent. Let them call you pro-dependent. On the other hand, at a certain point, when things are going well and we're in 6, 8 months into it, you kind of have to say, okay, I want to reestablish trust. I want to stop searching I want to begin to regain a sense of stability. And, I don't think you're probably there yet. So ask him or her to have access and look at all of it whenever you want to until you stop doing that. And I would say 6 months. I don't know, Tammy, what you would say, but
Well, I
um,
think you skipped down to the next one to get to January because that wasn't
okay.
included in this one.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry. That was the other
there
one.
was
I
not a time
apologize.
frame. No, that's okay. There
Okay.
wasn't a time frame, but it says after full therapeutic disclosure. So yeah, I mean, it takes time to rebuild trust. But yeah, at some point, if if the betrayed partner, like if it's always like forever that way, that isn't really rebuilding trust. So I hope that the betrayed partner starts going like, I need to focus on me. That person's doing their thing. I'm going to check in occasionally, but I'm also going to learn to trust my gut, that like I'm not going to be gaslit, like I now am aware of what I need for my safety. And if trust is broken, obviously, then there's more, then I need to pull my boundaries in tighter. But the challenge to me is if all of the focus is on what the addict is doing or not doing, that's tough for both of you. Like that's just like that isn't a joyous relationship. So learning to find that balance, but it's not going to happen automatically. Like that takes some practice and some time. And as Dr. Rob often says, trust is rebuilt over time. So it really does take some amount of time. Now, if you're saying this has been 5 years and this is always how it is, then it feels like having the partner get some additional support, to to navigate that trust space. But it could also be, what are you doing that, that you are really showing that you are trustworthy, because just not acting out is abstinence. It's not, you aren't changing anything. You're just not acting out, you can still be, a jerk.
And I want to add to you that you have to have your own self-respect. You have to look in the mirror and feel good about you. So if you're sneaking around in secret and looking at computers and looking at phones, number one, it's not going to make you feel better. Trust me, it will not make you feel better whether you find anything or not, because you'll just think, well, I missed it, or I didn't see it, or it's very obsessive kind of thinking. And the other is, do you want to look in the mirror and say, oh, yeah, I'm the person who goes through people's phones without their permission? Just because someone has hurt you, I'm not a fan of revenge, and I'm not a fan of taking on what they did and say, well, now I can look at everything because you did. I think it has to come from that's why I say you have to talk to them about it, so that it isn't this secret thing you're running around, because then you're just like the addict and you're running around doing something in secret that makes you feel bad about it. So do with an open heart to reassure yourself, set a date, and let your partner know what you're doing. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
quick and dirty.
I've had a couple of conversations over the weekend with partners, and we talked about, like, they were talking about, something that they did, to kind of, try to follow up or reach out. And I was like, what is your goal with this? I'm going to invite you to take a pause, and what are you hoping that would happen? And when you hear that, I'm like, well, you're talking to an active addict. That isn't going to happen. And I'm not saying you're an active addict. I'm saying, but it's also, I see how dysregulating it is for a partner. So there's a difference between, I'm doing this for safety and it helps, and I'm doing this for safety and I get completely dysregulated. And so learning to find that, that balance, and it changes, over time. So, okay. So next question. And I'm going to lower the hand for the one that's up. Okay. Detective. Oh, wait, there. I got to do the next one. Sorry. It's not clicking. Betrayed partner and cheating spouse here together. Discovery was January. Actively working 12-step program, and I have joined an online community for betrayed partners. We have been working with a marriage counselor, not specialized in SA. Up to now, we have had drip, staggered disclosure, and basically on the crazy go round. I'm sure. So we are in individual appointments with different CSATs that work in the same practice and aim to have full therapeutic disclosure. Given that we've done most things wrong backwards up, the next one, how would you define ownership so far as coming clean about a slip or relapse? My partner believed that simply telling me is enough and has minimized and asked why I just don't get over it. He also, as at the same time, wants to muddy the waters with hardships he says I've caused him over the years. His reaction feels as bad as the new information he stated. Can you speak to what ownership would look like? Oh,
Well,
goodness.
let me just say the second
Oh, wait,
part.
wait. No, I think I missed. Oh,
Oh
wait.
my
So I
God,
think
this is
yeah.
a
Okay. So
five-part
skip to the
question.
next one. Two now. Is there anything else you would recommend? So skip the middle one.
Okay, I
The
can
two, the 1 and 3 are
the
connected.
uh uh okay. Well,
Skip to
now I'm
how would you
confused.
define
Give me
ownership?
times. Oh, sorry. So Jimmy is connected to, I
Jimmy.
see. Okay, now I got it. Um,
I missed that because
so
one came in.
that's okay. My brain just does what it does at my age. Let me go to the first question, which is I'm not sure that working with, in fact, I'm pretty sure that working with a separate marriage counselor is probably not a good idea. In the beginning, it's hard enough to figure all this out with having three therapists involved, yours, theirs, and then you got a couples. You have to get your own ducks in a row and find your own peace with this. As Tammy said, for example, you got to stop focusing on him and you got to start focusing on you. Well, when you're in couples therapy, you're focused on each other. And so, if you've done things backwards and upside down, I would say start with the simplest things, which is reduce the amount of work that you're doing and have it be focused more on you individually than necessarily the two of you working on things. See, here's the thing. I don't recommend couples therapy because in the beginning, in my experience, all the partners say is, I hate you, and you ruin my life, which is what you should say, and we have. And then the addicts say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, and when you're going to get over it. And that means that the addict doesn't have any language, doesn't have any understanding or insight into what they've done. And you haven't had a chance as a partner to begin to understand the nature of betrayal and what your anger is about and what is healthy as a boundary, what isn't. So I really suggest in the beginning, no offense to your couples counselor, but I think it's too soon. Get yourself on your feet for 6 months and then talk about couples counseling. What else was there? Something at the staggered disclosure, Tammy, can you Say something about, I'm not sure I understand.
So they've done staggered disclosure, and
Right,
basically, yes, this is like,
right,
and here's the deal, like, you're where you're at, like, you can't you make it unhappen. So here's where you're at. I'm with Dr. Rob, the marriage counselor, particularly one that doesn't specialize in SA.
right.
Like, I'm sorry, that's a setup for not good results. So you each settling in, getting the support that you need. We have a betrayed partner work group starting again in May, and we have a sex
Oh,
addiction 101 online work group starting May 4th. I'm going to pull that. I highly recommend you guys, get connected with those. 12 step, working the 12 steps, fantastic. I don't know what step you're on, in January. Hopefully you're at least on step 4, if not 5. The steps 4 through 9, and we did a whole webinar on this, but steps 4 through 9 are the housekeeping ones. But learning, like, if you're heading for formal therapeutic disclosure, and that's up to, your therapist as to whether or not, because you've done the drip. But if you are, then stop the bleeding, stop the drip, and go, we're working with our people. We're going to get support. We're going to get prepared so that we can come together, in a different way. And even if you don't do formal therapeutic disclosure, which is, whatever, but at some point, stop that, get a plan, because this feels like chaos to me. So,
Um, yeah, Kevin, I love you more now that you said you are where you are. There's no going back. It is where it is, and look at where you are and see how to best go forward. I know that feeling of, well, if, and this is part of grief, is remorse. If we'd only done it this way, if we'd only done it, it's like when someone passes away. I wish I'd said this. I wish I'd said that. You are where you are, and I think you need to start where you are. I did want to say also that in couples work, and not everyone has the resources for this. I want to say not everyone has the resources for therapy. Part of the reason that Tammy and I do this, and we have all these free groups, is I know that very few of you will actually have the resources, money, insurance, to come to get the help. And so we give away 90% of what we have. All the podcasts, Tammy, they go back to 2018. I've been doing
I
podcasts.
know.
Um, we have, anyway, I'm just really encouraging those of you who don't have the resources to not say, oh my God, I can't get a therapist, or what I'm going to do, or we can't do all these things. There are many ways to heal without necessarily going that route. And as they say in AA, far more people have gotten sober in alcoholism than ever went to therapy. So it's just a different route. Um, I did want to say, though, that one of the things for those of you who can afford and do have those resources, your two CSATs can meet with you both. So rather than have a couples therapist, the four of you can sit down and talk about it. Because I don't know if you know this, but we lie. I have had so many addicts in couples therapy, and their spouse was hoping it would get better, and couples therapy is going to be the thing, and it's really going to heal us. And what they didn't realize is during the year of couples therapy that the addict was lying, and that there was never any hope that things would get better because they weren't dealing with the truth. So, um, yeah, I would say take it slower, have individual, put away the couples. And if that couples therapist thinks that maybe you're dumping them for the wrong reasons, certainly, I don't know them, I don't know what you're doing, but they can talk to your CSATs. They can talk to the people you're working with locally if you sign a release and say, what do you think? And I'd like to do this. And they can have therapist to therapist discussions. So we do that. Um, so anyway, that's my one for that.
So I'm going to add, because you just talked about podcasts. I'm going to put the link, but there was one that you did with Dr. Stan Tatkin back in January of 2019. We do. And I would invite the two of you to listen to that one, because it talks about, in a healthy relationship, this is what we do. And if you guys can go, hey, yeah, that's what we vision, and we're holding out hope, and we're going to work towards that goal, you can do really well. I mean, so a little bit of it is slow things down. You're not going to get there in the next minute. When you talked about lying to Dr. Rob, denial is lying to ourselves. And that's where it starts. We lie to ourselves first, and then we sell it to everybody else. And so it's hurtful to everybody. But I mean, I'm telling you, there's so much hope. I'm glad you're both on here. I'm glad you're reaching out. Lots of resources. Those online work groups would be fantastic for you each and both. So, okay, now I'm going to go back to the one that I read that was in between. How do you
Right.
define ownership so far as coming clean about a slip or relapse? My partner believed that simply telling me is enough and has minimized. This is from the betrayed partner, clearly, and asked me
Right.
why I don't just get over it. He also, at the same time, wants to muddy the waters with hardships, and he says I've caused him over the years. His reaction feels as bad as the new information he stated. Can you speak to what ownership should look like?
Um, I can. I wrote a book about it, and I'm sure Tammy was thinking the same thing when I wrote a book for men who have cheated on a woman because my experience is that men don't have any clue. We really don't. What your experience is having been betrayed. Number one, we're men and we think differently than you do. It's just, we have testosterone. Different things are different for us. And also, because men and women are not equal, we will never be equal, just to say it, because our bodies are built differently on a whole bunch of levels. But I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. Because we think, well, flowers and a couple of months, it's been a couple of months, and I've really trying now. And why haven't you gotten over it? And we don't understand. Well, you're just bugging me like you used to. And you're going to drive me right back to it. And I wish you would leave me alone. And why do you stop demanding all those questions? Those are the wrong answers to a betrayed spouse. So I wrote specifically and clearly, if you are asked this of your spouse, you're going to have to say this. You're going to have to answer in that way. This is how you respect someone who's been harmed. This is how you speak to someone who's asking a question when you've hurt them. I wrote that very, very clearly because guys are clueless. The other thing I wrote in the Out of the Doghouse is that we don't have to do any of that. Addicts don't have to answer correctly and be properly supportive, but then we can't be with you. It's in that you listen, if we want to be with you, the person that we've harmed, then there is a path to follow. And I wrote that out. Then Tammy said, we need to do a work group on that. So we started I think a 6-week course in Out of the
It's
Doghouse, a
6 week.
relationship saving guide for men caught
There's
cheating.
part one and part two. So it's
I wish
actually
I
12
changed that
weeks.
title
But
of the book, by the way. It's way too many
yeah,
words.
no, it's all
But
good.
it's my best-selling book, by the way, just to say it, out of 10 of them or something, because well, women read it if their husband is or man has hurt them like this, and they realize that they're not getting what they need and they're not being treated well like this person, and then they throw it at him and say, you read this and you take the course. I don't think we necessarily mean to hurt you or mean to blame you. I just think we want it all to go away. And we just want it, it's like, can you just leave me alone? And I'm doing the best I can. And, we don't understand that you need to be supported, that you need to see us. So anyway, Tammy, I kind of covered that. Is there
Yeah,
anything?
but well, no, I do because I think Out of the Doghouse is the wrong work group. This guy needs Sex Addiction 101. If he's having, I don't think he has a relapse. I think he keeps acting out. I don't think he's got any recovery. He's not going, oh, wow, I can tell that my slip behavior really hurt you. And
Hmm.
here's what I'm doing. I'm meeting with my sponsor. I'm going to double up on 12-step meetings. I'm going to join the online work group, whatever. Like, I don't hear all the work that he's supposedly doing to make sure that he doesn't have another slip. So to me, it's back to the foundational, like Sex Addiction 101, and then Out of the Doghouse. Lots of guys, well, of course they cheat. That's why they go to Doghouse, but they perceive that if I go to Doghouse, I can learn how to, manage you. But if I haven't stopped the behaviors, like, this is just going to keep happening. So, but I'm going to flip it one more time. What are you doing for your safety? What are you doing to take care of you, regardless of what he does or doesn't do? I hear how hurtful this is when he shares this and minimizes, and like, he's not taking ownership of that. He's not taking ownership of his behavior, and he's blaming you, being hurtful to you. So I would invite you to really work on your healthy boundaries to take care of you. So, okay. And
Okay.
this is another case where a one-time expert consultation with Dr. Rob might be really useful. Okay. Um, you typed an answer and I can't
Oh,
get
don't
rid of
worry.
that
I
one.
was just going
Okay.
to ask you. I didn't mean to. That
I
was an
can't
accident.
I can't do anything with that. Okay. So the next one, I am 10 months from discovery day. As far as I know, my husband is no longer acting out. He is still delusional and lying to himself. How long will this last? And is there any help to break him out of this? Yes, we have a residential treatment program. That's, I
And
mean, like,
no, you can't. You can't in terms of, and I know sounds so therapy, but we cannot control anyone else. You can threaten, you can demand, you can, if you do this, I'm going to do that. It doesn't create change. What creates change is you're taking care of yourself. And this is in Tammy's uh, uh, arena, which is what are you doing for you? Do you want to stay in the same bed as this person? Do you want them in the same house as you? What makes you feel safe? What do you want them to what's another good one, Tammy? Do you want to for yourself maybe living alone for a while or change the locks? Or it's really about, I don't think you can get him or her to do anything, but by seeing you focus on you and probably withdraw from the relationship, he or she's going to feel it. And it's really interesting, Tammy. I don't know if I ever said this to you, but um, addicts will put down their spouse, they will dismiss their spouse, they will avoid their spouse, they will blame their spouse, and they'll talk about how great that bright and sparkly other people are out there. But if you guys move 1 inch away from us, oh my God, where did they go? And what did I do? And when are you coming back? And I'm so sorry. And because we were actually deeply connected to you, deeply. It's just that we are, to be honest, I know it doesn't sound like the right words, but we're terrified of you. You can hurt us. You can let us down. It's much easier to run over here where everything's anonymous and they don't care about me, or have an affair where everything's perfect. So what all you can do is say, I am not willing to have you sleep in my bed. I am not willing to have you working at the place where you're having affairs with other men or other women. I think you get to set your boundaries and maintain them, and then you might or might not see change, but at least you'll feel better. I was gonna say something about that. Just remember, you can't make anyone do anything that they don't want to do, but you can take care of yourself. Um, yeah, Tammy, do you want to add to that?
The only thing I want to, he's no longer acting out. My suspicion is he might not be doing that problematic behavior, but I bet he's, doing something else. I talk to people all the time, and well, they're not acting out with sex workers, but he's still watching porn. I'm just making that up, but addicts, we don't just stop. We just don't. We find other ways. Food, gaming, whatever. There's lots of other ways. So yeah, I'm with Dr. Rob. Healthy boundaries for you, and I put a link for our expert residential treatment for him. So
I did want to say something about boundaries, which is if you say you're going to do something, this is really important for you spouses. I cannot say this strongly enough. If you say to me, if you do this again, I'm going to leave you, or if I found out that you hid something from me, I'm going to leave you, then you better leave. Because if you don't, or whatever it is, I'm going to ask you to leave and I'm going to live here alone, and then you don't, what we learn as addicts is, oh, they say they're going to do things, but they don't. So I can keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm just going to get a bunch of threats. So be careful what you say in terms of setting your boundaries, making sure, that if you are going to say, I don't want you living here because I don't feel safe if they do this or that, you're going to have to make sure they're not living there if you don't feel safe and we do something like that. Otherwise, we learn that we can, twist you around our, where do you twist things? Twisting
oh,
around my,
yeah, twist
whatever
you
that
on
is.
my little finger, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I heard something really good this weekend, and so I'm going to share this. But someone said part of her boundaries were that if this, if this trust is broken, then I'm going to consult her therapist, her whatever. She's going to consult her tribe, and there will be consequences, but she's going to be, it was like she's going to be measured in what the consequences were. And I thought that's great, because then it isn't this ultimatum. And you also, like, the addict knows there's going to be something, I don't know what it is, but the partner doesn't have to have that, line in the sand
Threaten.
with something too. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's really good. It's like, I don't know what it is. I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to consult my tribe, and I'm going to get back to you of what it was. So I was like, well, that's kind of, I thought that was kind of brilliant. So,
And to back Tammy up, I just want to say there's nothing we can really do to make you feel better because we're the ones who hurt you, and no matter what we say or what we do, you may feel better in the moment. For example, I have spouses who, they've been cheated on, they've been betrayed, and this may not be you, but they decide, well, they're going to have sex with us because, that will make us feel closer and that will make them, well, but do you want to have sex with us first? Do you feel safe? Or is it more to get them to do something? So you have to do what works for you and not to influence them. We'll do what we're going to do. Um, and what you're here, what this person's talking about, the way, is not okay. It's not okay for me to blame you, to shame you, to devalue you. I've already put you through enough. Anyway, let's
I
keep going,
think you're
Tammy.
you're skipping around again, because
No, go
yeah.
ahead.
Okay. Okay. I'm 10 months from Discovery Day. Yeah, that was the one we were just answering. So that was the delusional. Okay. So now the next one is when spouse is a sex addict and has contracted an incurable STD, I just don't think I will ever be able to be sexually intimate with him again. Are some spouses that can take that risk? I'm only 2 years post discovery. Mm.
I don't, that's a really hard question to answer because I'm not in your situation. I don't know. I do know that when women are given HPV, human papillomavirus, that it's not unlikely, and I don't know what the percentages are, but it can cause cervical cancer. It can create problems with pregnancy and birth. We don't even think twice about it, or we think, oh, it's oral sex, I won't get a disease, or yeah, we will, or we only think about HIV, or so I don't think, I mean, I hear about this in treatment all the time. By the way, when you're in our residential center, that one of the first things we do is you get an STD test. And that is one of the things that we will go to the spouse with right away, not us, but we'll ask the addict to do it because we're not going to sit around while someone has a disorder and they don't know about it. But Tammy, what do you, I don't, condoms would be an easy answer. I don't think that's the right answer. Um, by the way, may I have a hall pass to go use the restroom for just a minute and I'll be right back?
You
Okay.
may make sure
Thank
you're muted.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, to me, this is one of those. It feels like it's more than the safety of, like it feels, this feels deeper than that. It feels like the betrayal that he's hurt my body. Um, and I assume you've gotten yourself tested because you said he has a sexually transmitted disease, but you didn't say that you did. So, but you're at least at risk. And yes, there are, condoms and things like that, but it feels like you're not even ready to consider that. I think this is one of those, like you can, you know, if it's not, you're not ready today, you're not ready today. But I don't think it has to be like, I'm never going to do, this again. I think you can find space and go, what would feel right and what doesn't feel right, and then it's, I'm not ready now. I don't know if I will be. And if that's okay with the two of you, then, then you continue on. So there's lots of other ways to connect in real and meaningful ways without sexual intercourse. So, but I hope you've gotten yourself tested. Like, I would want to make sure that I'm taking care of me regardless of what he's doing for him. So, okay. You're muted. You're muted.
That's a very sad story.
Mhm. Okay, so the
Okay.
next one. What's the best thing to do if I think my partner hasn't been fully honest during disclosure?
Tammy, toss that one
Well,
to
I'm
you.
kind of, yeah, no, but I'm kind of wondering, I would be curious what makes you think that? Like, do you, like this happens, unfortunately. The point of doing a formal therapeutic disclosure is to set a foundation for healing. And then we hear addicts that muff up on this and they aren't truthful and they go, well, I'm going to hold this thing back because if she finds out about this, then she's going to leave me. Guess what? She's going to find out about this and she's going to leave you because
Right.
now you haven't been truthful. So like, don't do a formal thing. I mean, just say, no, I'm not going to do a formal therapeutic disclosure, and terminate the relationship or whatever, or show up, for this. But for the partner, I'm curious what makes you think that? Because if you have evidence, then it would be, I would really bring it to your therapist and his therapist and go, I know these things. If it's that you don't feel it, I'm wondering, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm wondering if there's just like, he's been such a hot mess with, I can't trust him about anything. So why would I think he's trustworthy about that? On the other hand, if you're going, gosh, he seems like he's making progress, do you feel like you can move forward? If there are things that are left off a formal therapeutic disclosure, there's a process, there's a whole plan for, anything that gets remembered, because that can happen. Anything that gets
Hmm.
remembered, this is what we will do. If this, we'll schedule an appointment with our therapist. We'll do, kind of the mini follow-up or whatever. If it's a low level something, maybe we talk about it. If it's a higher level, we need our therapist. So I think this is really more dependent on what's making you feel like it isn't. If it's just general distrust, that's something to be, like, I mean, that's something to wonder about. Has he shown you by his actions that there's any difference in the person that is coming out of disclosure than the person, that showed up at discovery time? So What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, I don't know if the partner is male. I'm just going to use those gender, those, talk to him. Say, you know what, I'm feeling like something's missing and I'm not feeling trusting and I don't, I just want you to know that. And by the way, we can have a free, what do you call it? A get out of jail free card, which is I'm going to give you a week to tell me the things because I'm going to find them.
Mm.
So I want to give you permission if you tell me in the next few days. And by the way, Tammy, in treatment, working in residential treatment, and I get letters from the spouses who are involved in treatment. And so I get information from spouses, and this just breaks my heart. When a spouse says in a letter, if you had a porn problem and you told me about it, we could have figured it out. If you told me you were doing this or that, I would have been furious, but at least you told me and we were going forward as a couple to figure it out. One of the hardest and most, and all the spouses will tell you this, is finding out. It's the you haven't been truthful to me for 15 years. I just, it's the betrayal, not necessarily the behavior. So, and I would talk to him about it. And also, I would say these are my boundaries. If I find this out or that, this is what I need to do for me. So I like this next question. Oh, by the way, you should go to one of the support groups because you're not the only partner who's feeling like I don't trust. Every partner is feeling that
Right,
way.
right. So the next one is I'm a betrayed partner and moving on alone. I am falling hard for someone who is spoken for, but seems we are both attracted to each other. I'm not sure how to feel about it. I'm worried I'm going to regret this and it's too soon. I'm worried I'm obsessing and I'm becoming an addict. Is this the type of response part of a betrayal trauma sometimes?
Um, well, my first comment is I remember someone in group years and years ago who said to the group, someone said they wanted to do something, whatever. Was it okay? And this person in group said, when I do most things in life, I don't question it. Should I do this? Should I eat? Should I see a friend? I don't question it. But when I'm really questioning, is it a good idea? It probably isn't. You know the answer to this question. You don't need our permission or our challenge to you. I don't know about addiction, but I do know when people suffer a loss and there's an emptiness inside, they want to fill it up. How many couples, someone dies, they break up, and within a short period of time, they found someone else, and all these feelings. It's like we've taken the emptiness and thrown Christmas lights on that person, and they're all sparkly. And um, I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. You have to look in the mirror. You have to see who you are and how you're going to feel about yourself. If you think cheating, inviting another person to cheat with you on their marriage or their relationship is going to make you feel good, I don't think that's really true. If you're questioning this, it's probably a bad idea. By the way, as a therapist, I'll tell you what, um, over the years, I've found clients attractive. I thought, oh, that's an attractive person, especially when I was early in my career. And obviously, there was never going to be anything that happened. And I remind myself and I remind young therapists now, there are like 300 million people on the planet, and there were probably, thousands and thousands and thousands of single people. Do you really have to be with this person? Is this the person that you want to, is this a rock you want to die on? By the way, how will your future go? I think sometimes we just, addicts in particular, oh, this is going to be really hot. It's going to be really, and this is for all you addicts. I can't wait to do this. It's going to be really exciting. What's going to be like after? How are you going to feel when it's over? How are you going to feel when you need a shower? How are you going to feel when you're skulking into the house and pretending everything's fine? How are you going to feel when their partner finds out? And I think thinking to the other side of it really helps us remove the sparkly lights that are here right now. So, no, I don't think it's a good idea on so many levels for how you're going to feel. Do you want to hurt someone else's relationship? This is not the way to fix your heartache. And again, you do need relationships and you do need support, but you need it from other people who are going through what you're going through. And we have a moving on alone support group. We actually have that. Tammy, do you want to just mention something here?
I
Just
did.
to.
I put it in the chat. It's on,
Mhm.
like on our website. You'll find all of the groups. The betrayed partner one is on Thursdays, and I would encourage you to participate in that. And you can even bring that question to them. But I like I was thinking, Dr. Rob, do you know how often I hear from partners who are like, I was the former affair partner, and now he's cheating on me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but what did you expect?
How
So,
did you meet?
but I don't see, like, this does feel like the Christmas lights. Oh, I'm gonna look over here. I'm not gonna feel bad. I'm not gonna address those. It hurts. Grief hurts. Like, it's painful. It's more fun to go, ooh, intensity, and all this fun and all of this, and but yeah, I can tell you how this story ends, and it's not so hot. So,
And there are tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of other people that you could
mhm.
begin to be with. By the way, a good question for you is, do you feel like it's time to date? Do you feel like it's a good time to go out and meet other people? Because if you felt that way, then maybe you wouldn't be in this situation if you felt like you were okay to date and go out there. It feels to me like you're looking for a way to feel better without really considering the circumstances. And I bet you dollars to donuts that you're not ready to go date and meet other people. So why would you be involved with this person? And I can't help but say they're married. They're married. They have children. They have a life. They have
Yeah,
family. Do you really, no matter what they say, or do you really want to be the person who did that? It's not fair, and you know that.
yeah,
Okay,
because you've been on the other end of it. So,
right.
okay. My betrayer hasn't acted out since discovery, as far as I know, 3 months ago. He says he has no desire to act out and doesn't have any compulsive because of how traumatic this was. And he never wants to hurt me or our family again and wants to make things right. But I have a hard time believing he went from being a porn addict, acting out every day, to not at all and no desire now. Is this possible? Everyone tells me how hard it's so unlikely for addicts to not relapse or want to.
There's more, I think. Is there more to
No,
this?
I
Oh, that's
think
the other
no.
question.
Yeah, that's the
Okay,
next question.
so let me just say I have a couple of things. One of the things that we struggle with as addicts is when there is a crisis. Well, I'll give you a different example. I'm an alcoholic, and I had a car accident while I'm drinking, and I'm never going to drink again. Never, never, never. But the fear fades away. And it's like, oh well, I guess I just won't drive if I have had 3 drinks, and then it's 4 drinks, and then so what I'm saying is the immediacy of a crisis can, in the moment, I've had addicts say, oh, I don't feel like doing it anymore at all. I mean, this happened, it came out, my wife said she was leaving me, and I haven't felt like doing it in 3 months. Well, it'll be back. Crisis does not equal change. Crisis is an opportunity to say, I've got to get to work. Crisis may create a pink cloud for a period of time. And, when people use things like never and always, Tammy and I read a book. You remember that book I recommended on I Know That You're Lying?
Yeah,
Um,
you can't
there-
lie to me.
right. You Can't Lie to Me is written by a forensic psychologist. And one of the things she said is when someone's saying never or always, they're probably not being entirely honest. So I think this is their intention. I don't think they want to hurt you, but I have to tell all of you spouses, we're not doing what we do as addicts to hurt you. We're doing it because we're caught up in it does hurt you, but we're not being malicious and saying, well, I'm going to go do this 100 times so it'll hurt them. We're saying, I want to do this because I want to do this. And I hope they don't find out because I don't want to hurt them in our minds. By the way, what I was writing before is denial. You want to write this down, folks? Denial. So write the word D, like down, what do you say, vertically?
Vertically.
Denial. And then write for the D, write don't. And for the E, write even. And for the no, we're going to cheat a little bit, say no, K-N-O-W. For the I. For the A. And for the L, right, is lying. So the denial means I don't
Just
even know
don't.
that I'm
No,
lying to
I'm lying.
myself. And I think that's a lot of the addicts come in and they think, I'm done. I'm over it. I know that's their denial. That is them saying, oh, well, I know it's going to be fine. I never want to do this again. And I promise, I saw how much it hurt you. Those are promises, but they're not worth very much. What I think is worth something is, are they doing things? Are they going to 12-step meetings? Are they going to support groups? Are they reading? And not just you initiated it. One of the things that frustrates me for spouses is, I do a consult and the addict says, oh, I'm so motivated. I'm really working on this. I'm so glad to be talking to you. And my question is, oh, and I've read all these books. I listened to your podcast, and now I'm getting this consult. And I'll say, well, who arranged the consult? My spouse did. Who told you to read the book? My spouse did. Who had you listen to the podcast? My spouse did. That's not someone I'd feel trusting with or feel good about. We have to be taking accountability and taking actions that demonstrate our promises, not just making our promises. We make a vow to marriage. That's a promise. We don't keep that one either. By the way, I've had people who dating who said, "Oh, we never talked about monogamy, 3 years in, right? We never talked about monogamy, so I guess that I don't have to," and all kinds of denial that we tell ourselves to make something okay that is not okay. All right, we got time for one more. And by the way, Tammy said to all you folks, you better get in there early because we're gonna have extra questions. And so when you get on here, start asking questions right away.
Well, I'm going
Okay.
to tag onto this because I actually said I've learned my lesson. I'll never do this again. And I absolutely would have because I didn't have the life skills. And I hear somebody who's in trauma and crisis right now, probably some shame. And guess what? That's a recipe for acting back out. So as soon as things simmer back down, or he may even be using another form of, maladaptive coping mechanisms. But yeah, I put the Porn Addiction 101 online work group. I put the link for that. And there's a betrayed partner one. But yeah, zero trust. Yeah, he's in crisis right now. But if he's not got a daily plan and it isn't just reading books, then it's the cycle of addiction. And yeah, he's okay right now, but it's gonna blow up again. So
And he may
okay.
even feel like he's okay, but
Oh
you
yeah,
got to
yeah.
stand on the
That's yeah,
people who are
absolutely.
very sick, sometimes they feel good too, but that doesn't
Yeah,
mean that they're
yeah.
well.
I
Okay, last
knew for
question.
sure I was never gonna do that again, and I would have been like, yeah, it would have happened. Okay, betrayed here. It's been more than 2 years since discovery. My husband did some counseling at the outset, but there's been nothing in over a year. He recently had a slippery lap, acts like it's unimportant, thinks the admission was enough, and I need to get over it. We are trying to agree on an action plan, and begrudgingly, he seems to be willing to do more than before. What is currently agreed on is this draft plan are your webinars, essay meetings, and readings. He does have a CSAT, but the meetings are sporadic and few due to the CSAT's very busy schedule. Would you agree my partner would benefit from more? Yes. A sponsor and or frequent or regular support sessions offered through Seeking Integrity, especially to start. Anything you might advise that we may be missing and can help to come up with an agreement as to what exactly would provide the best chances of success. Email me, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com. I have bunches of resources for you, including like an essay meeting, just going to meetings. I'm sorry, but like you can warm a butt there and you're in a seat and not ever change. So it would be working the 12 steps, working with a sponsor, daily calls with a sponsor. Yeah, I mean, our online, I already mentioned Sex Addiction 101 starts May 4th. That would be a really good work group. It's not enough, but it would be a start. Anything, the webinars are great. I'm glad you're here, but they are not interactive. Our drop-in groups are better for that, for both of you, each of you separately. But those are connecting with other people who are, they can go, yeah, me too. Or I have a question. I'm struggling with this. Or I've been so minimizing of my behaviors to my wife. How do I not take this on with shame? Whatever. But, connecting with other people is how we absolutely can change. So I'm
And
sorry.
this is what my consultations are for. Really, really. When a
Mm-hmm,
couple's had been at this for 2 years and they've been working on
mm-hmm.
it, and the addict says, I'm doing all this, I'm doing that, and when are you going to get over it? And, I'm not talking about 3 weeks or 3 months. I'm talking about this has been a long time, and you're not feeling safe and you're not feeling comfortable, and you think more should be done, and maybe your partner thinks they're doing plenty. Well, this is where I come in and evaluate everything. And the goal of my consults is to say, I think this is a good idea and this isn't a good idea. Do it or don't, but I'm going to take 30 years of experience and make a recommendation, and you can do what you like. I do think that the courses are helpful. And the reason that I really push forward, I don't know, as a porn addict or a sex addict, is because, or both, is because when you're in therapy, you learn a lot of relationship issues. You learn how you may grieve, you may be upset, you may be angry, you may not know how to handle things. But when we're doing treatment, we teach things. We have, when I'm running residential treatment, every day they get a lecture. So there is an explanation. Our brains need to understand too. It's not just an emotional thing. And so why we set up these courses is so that people who are in therapy can also get the educational piece. They've got homework, they have workbooks, it's like a class. It is a class. And so, yeah, I don't think, like Tammy said, and let me just say this, when would enough ever be enough? Could I not do one more group? Could I not see one more support? Could I not? I mean, what's going to happen? I'm going to get too recovered. I'm going to be too healthy. Um, and there is something else in here. Oh, by the way, let me just say to everybody what discovery is versus disclosure. Discovery, and you'll see there's a small d there, is I found out that things were going on. I discovered this. Disclosure is I'm with a big D, I'm in a formal therapeutic relationship and we're going to sit down and disclose. I'm going to hear you're going to disclose what's happened. And that happens in therapy with a support person or even a clergy or a situation if you can't afford therapy. But there is a difference between finding out something and someone meaningfully sit down and explain it to you. Um, yeah, and I also think going to a support group for you, which is free, to understand how other spouses are dealing with this and managing this. You can't get enough support. Trust me. Um, yeah, Tammy, I think we have to stop, and I hate
We
that.
do have to stop, but I know, come
Can I
back.
say
Yeah, please.
cough syrup, um, honey and tea, lemon? Yes, yes,
Yes,
do all
hot
that,
water with
Tammy.
honey. I got my little lozenges.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Tammy, rest.
Mm.
Rest
I
is
know
important
that's the
too.
problem though, is as soon as
I
I try to
know.
rest, I cough, you know. If I'm upright,
Oh,
I'm fine. Yeah, so,
okay.
but if
I'll have to
yeah, if I
think
could do
about
the
that one.
astronaut, I know if I could do the astronaut thing and, strap on to the wall and stand up sleeping,
I have no
I can
idea what you
figure that
just said,
out.
but I
So
don't want to know what
the,
it is you just
on
said.
an astronaut, they get, um, I think they get strapped into the spaceship, and so
Okay,
that
you just
they're.
need a seatbelt.
I need a seatbelt. Yes,
All
I
right.
need a
Tammy and I could
vertical bunk
chat
bed.
all day
So,
long.
all
You
right,
guys have a
bye
good evening. Tammy,
everybody.
I'll probably talk to you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.